Massive progress is taking over the future Camp Nou. This week, the stadium entered one of its biggest structural phases yet. The compression ring is now advancing on both goal ends. Lamas installation is accelerating again, and cranes across the site are moving non-stop. But the biggest change of all is this. For the first time in months, Camp Nou is finally starting to look like the finished stadium rising into reality. So let's get straight into today's update. The famous red facade Lamas had been almost completely stalled for weeks in parts of the south goal zone. That changed this week. Guide strings are now being installed between anchor points across several sectors, including the south goal, north goal corner, and lateral zones. This alignment process always happens right before installation speeds up. In the north goal corner, the final Lama on the front false ceiling section was installed only days ago, and new pieces are already going in immediately afterward. The crews have clearly found momentum. Workers now move far faster than during the early installation stages, and the pace of facade progress has noticeably increased across the stadium. And the reason why the south goal zone had paused before makes the current acceleration there even more important, because it connects directly to the biggest story of this entire update. Here's the major development nobody expected this quickly. Both the north goal and south goal sides of the compression ring are now practically at the same construction stage. The south goal received the first flange installation alongside its exterior pillar. Then, on the north goal side, crews prepared the pillar and radial beam on Wednesday. By Thursday, the missing flange was already installed. Now both sides match structurally. That is not accidental. It reflects a deliberate parallel construction sequence. The workflow is becoming very clear. Raise the truss, install the pillar, mount the radial beam, then place the next flange. The lateral zones are structurally different from the goal ends because the pillar positioning changes there, but progress continues steadily across every section. Meanwhile, 2 tower cranes remain active, moving heavy components around the site, while scaffolding for upcoming pillar and beam positions is already being assembled. The compression ring is no longer a distant milestone. It is now an active, visible construction phase. We begin inside the structure, where progress is proving just as impressive as the exterior works. Multiple developments are unfolding across different internal zones, but today's standout update focuses on the dressing room arrangements. There will be 2 completely separate dressing rooms in the new Spotify Camp Nou. The first will serve as the main men's dressing room used by FC Barcelona on the biggest stages. The second will be a fully dedicated, purpose-built dressing room for the women's team. This is not a shared or adapted space. It is being specifically designed for them. That is a genuinely significant detail, reflecting the club's commitment to the women's team by providing the facilities, respect, and investment they truly deserve. Right now, the busiest areas of the entire Camp Nou project are the lateral corner zones, especially the corner near the south goal stand and the matching north goal corner. The amount of material concentrated here is enormous. Flanges are stacked and ready. Radial beams are waiting on the ground. Trusses are constantly being repositioned by cranes. Workers on elevated platforms are preparing the exact components needed for the next compression ring sequence. A concrete pump has also appeared in this area, suggesting new concrete work is either beginning soon or already being prepared. At the same time, reinforcement work for the diamond zone pillars continues with formwork and steel placement advancing together. This is no longer one crew handling one task. Multiple teams are now operating simultaneously in tight construction zones, and the coordination level on site is becoming increasingly impressive. The South Goal Zone delivered a quieter but very important signal this week. Temporary structural supports are now being dismantled in several areas. And when supports come down, it means the structure above is finally capable of standing on its own. That may not look dramatic on camera, but from a construction perspective, it is a major milestone. On the second level of this sector, activity is calmer than in the corner zones, although work continues steadily. Elevated platforms remain active on the beams, polishing work is ongoing near stored materials, and crews continue operating around the piston section. 3 Lamas are intentionally missing in one section because work around the piston area still needs completion before installation can finish there. The south goal may not be the loudest zone right now, but structurally, it is quietly crossing major milestones. Inside the north goal area, the work is more detailed and technical. Bolt painting is underway, with workers applying protective anti-corrosion and fire-resistant coatings from elevated platforms. This process can happen before or after Lama's installation depending on scheduling, which allows several construction tasks to continue simultaneously. Guide strings are also being installed across the false ceiling front section to guarantee the facade slats align perfectly once installed. Additional structural material has now arrived in this zone as well. At the same time, workers are fitting connection unions for the thin black beams that will later support the sandwich panels in the upper areas. That is an important sign because it shows interior fit-out phases are beginning to overlap with structural construction. Several layers of work are now happening at once in this sector, exactly the pattern expected as the stadium moves deeper into completion stages. Activity also continued around the north goal corner area, where workers were carefully measuring new connection points near the facade structure. Several support sections already look highly advanced, although some tube installations still remain unfinished in a few areas. At the same time, a crane lifted another large beam into the upper mobility core structure, where future elevators and stair systems will be located. This entire section will later be enclosed using sandwich panel systems, similar to the lower levels already completed around the stadium. And with another beautiful panoramic view over the north goal corner and Tribuna under the clear Barcelona sky, the scale of Camp Nou's transformation becomes even more impressive. Compared to the intense activity in the corners, the Tribuna zone currently feels much quieter. Pipe installation work is ongoing beneath the slab, routing infrastructure systems through the internal areas behind the trusses. These are essential steps that must happen before final interior materials can arrive. Sandwich panels are also stacked and waiting in the mobility core sections, prepared for installation once the surrounding structure is fully ready. The Tribuna is currently positioned between structural completion and interior fit-out phases. It is not falling behind, but it is also not leading the race right now. How quickly these central zones catch up with the goal and corner sections will become one of the most important questions in the coming weeks. Across the stadium, smaller finishing operations are becoming increasingly visible. These tasks may not dominate headlines, but together they signal a project transitioning from pure structure toward exterior completion. Vertical union installations for Lama brackets continue progressing in the lower corner zones, with 2 new supports confirmed since the previous update. Welding operations are visible on beams around the south goal, while workers continue operating from elevated platforms high above the stadium floor. Meanwhile, sandwich panels, the black exterior cladding units, are now staged and waiting in multiple sectors. In the upper north goal areas, crews are hanging connection pieces for the black beam system that will eventually support those panels. The crane above the 3rd level remains active daily. Some beams still carry visible white scuff marks and require final painting passes before completion. These details matter because this is the stage where a stadium stops building only its skeleton and begins adding its skin. Coming into this week, one major question surrounded the Camp Nou rebuild. Would the compression ring become a construction bottleneck? This week's answer appears clear: no. Both goal ends are now aligned at the same structural phase, with the next sequence of truss, pillar, beam, and flange installations already prepared. Lamas' installation, which had stalled for weeks in parts of the south goal, is now actively accelerating again across multiple sectors simultaneously. Material deliveries continue, cranes remain active, construction crews are overlapping efficiently. Right now, no major section of the stadium appears stuck. And perhaps most importantly, the overall pace of the project looks stronger this week than it did only 1 week ago. Next week, all eyes will be on the next compression ring segments and the growing number of installed Lamas. Because if the current pace continues, the visual transformation of Camp Nou is about to become even more dramatic.